life on a piece of paper, held by a magnet on the refrigerator, said it all. You can't change the mind of an 18-year-old. Cloud of dust coming from a Gran Torino, taking off. Population, one less restless soul, runaway to below.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Unexplained Reality with Brian Quinn and
Harrison Quinn.
So he's on Skype. He's still living out his vacation. You're about to go to the beach, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Should be fun. Everything going okay?
Yep, everything's fine with me.
Cool. You got any news, any info for us?
Nope.
All right. Well, this past weekend, Harrison and I went on a little with my oldest brother, his uncle, on a little trip up the Uwharrie mountain range, Uwharrie National Forest, which is northeast of Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's a place where we've had a few Bigfoot sightings, Sasquatch sightings, and so we went up there to check out the area. I've been there before, but I was by myself and didn't have a lot of time to knock around, so we pretty much spent all day Sunday just checking out the national park from north to south, and then ended up the day with about a, what would you say, 3-4 mile hike, buddy, up one of the main trails there, and probably a couple miles up and then a couple miles back.
Yeah.
But it's pretty interesting. It was not very not a lot of people there for 4th of July weekend, which was surprising. So I think it's somewhere we're gonna dig into a little bit more in the future, maybe in the fall when it cools down, because it was extremely hot while we were up there, and it was made for a very hot hike. So even though we were in trees and stuff, there's steamy. And so anyways, we'll keep you up to date on that as that goes forward, if we get something planned, a camping trip up there for like a weekend. I have a couple articles here. The first one is from phantomsofmonsters.com. However, it's been all over the news, and it's about the picture that was found in the National Archives of possibly Amelia Earhart and her navigator. I can't remember his first name. His last name's Noonan. This picture apparently shows them maybe being in Japanese custody. But the article says, was Amelia Earhart imprisoned and killed by the Japanese buried in the National Archives for nearly 80 years? A newly rediscovered photo may hold the key to solving one of history's all-time greatest mysteries. On July 2nd, 1937, near the end of her pioneering flight around the world, Amelia Earhart vanished somewhere over the Pacific Ocean. Most experts, including the Smithsonian's Air and Space Museum, believe Earhart likely ran out of fuel and crashed in the Pacific Ocean, but no trace of the aviator, navigator Fred Noonan, or her twin-engine Lockheed Electra airplane were ever found, confounding historians and fueling conspiracy theories ever since. Now, new evidence has surfaced in U.S. government archives suggesting Earhart might not have crashed into the Pacific at all, but crash-landed in the Marshall Islands, was captured by Japanese military, and died while being held prisoner on the island of Saipan. That's pretty remarkable. I think Josh Gates didn't he do an episode about that a couple of years ago, buddy? Where they went to the Marshall Islands or whatever, and they had witnessed like some people, that a lady or something that was still alive during that time period, and says she witnessed, she saw Amelia Earhart and saw her get taken by the Japanese or something. I thought that's something I recall. I could be fabricating it, but do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. The next one, article here, actually I'm not going to read that one. The next one comes from cryptozoologynews.com, and this one is called, let's see, it's called it's about an Indiana man who's an engineering teacher, I guess. Claims him and his wife are being abducted by aliens. Plainfield, Indiana. A man in Indiana says he and his fiancee experienced a series of strange events they believe could be related to alien intervention. The resident and engineer from Plainville, who chose to remain anonymous, claims these entities have been experimenting on them and leaving marks on their bodies. I've woken with several cuts on my head and what appears to be needle injections into my stomach. He said, not providing any photographic evidence. He also said that he has been able to predict future events as of late and that he is afraid of sharing this information on account of their professional career. She is also a school teacher. We cannot take unnecessary chances, he added. The supposed engineer wrote the message on MUFON containing countless misspellings. So that's pretty much it. So, who knows? Interesting. The alien abduction thing is something we'll kind of get into a little bit tonight, but with our guest that we got coming on. There's one more I got. This is from Charleston, West Virginia. Man claims to have captured an alien on surveillance camera. It says a man in West Virginia released a photograph of what he calls a not human face. The anonymous man said that the entity appears regularly in the back of his house. I got this message from my security, this image from my security cameras. He said the photograph shows an area with green vegetation and a pale face coming out of one of the bushes. The man who calls the mysterious face Marciano, creatures of Mars in Spanish, says he hasn't seen a UFO around the area. It's very interesting. It looks like typical. It's hard to tell that the top of the head's blocked by some vegetation, but it's a white face, almost has like a glow and then black eyes. I don't know. It's very weird. I don't know. Maybe it's something, maybe it's not. Might be just somebody after her attention. Anyways, that's all I've got. You got anything to add, buddy?
Nope.
All right. If not, we'll roll right into our interview. We got a guest tonight, Richard Laudenslager. He will be coming on, and he's talking about a book he's written with a number of other authors, and kind of a short story format. And so it's a very good book. We'll have all the information for Richard and his book in the show notes. Also at the end of his recording, because we don't have the proper setup yet to bring his some sound bites and videos he had in line, where it would be worth being able to hear it while we were in the interview. So at the end of his interview, we'll put in his sound bites and the audio from the videos he had. The videos will upload to our YouTube channel, so go look for it there, and there'll also be all the links in the show notes for that, so you can go watch the videos from some paranormal experiences he's had and during investigations. So if you go with, buddy, we'll head on and bring Richard in and let him talk about his stuff.
Yeah.
All right. We got tonight. We got a special guest. We got Richard Laudenslager, and I'm pronouncing it like my German way of pronouncing it. I don't know if that's how you actually pronounce it. I don't know if it's Laudenslager or you pronounce it Laudenslager.
Laudenslager.
Laudenslager. Okay. I figured I was going to mess that up. So. Richard does some paranormal investigating. He's kind of like us. There's a little bit of everything that's unexplained. That's just from Bigfoot to paranormal to whatever, ghost stories, which I guess is paranormal. Richard wrote a book called Southern Swamps and Ruins with a couple other authors. And we're just going to have an impromptu discussion here, and there's no subject other than just talk about what we want to talk about. So, Richard, I'll let you go in and you can tell, start us off and tell us how people can contact you, and just in case anybody wants to reach out to you.
Yeah, I can be reached through my email. It's rdl29073 at Yahoo. I've got the, like you mentioned, the book Southern Swamps and Ruins is actually an anthology collaboration with an author friend of mine named Fran Reiser, and then 6 guest authors. And the essence of that anthology is all the stories take place in South Carolina, and they're all written by South Carolina authors, and they're all original fiction, but they range anywhere from your standard ghost story to a little bit of time travel, some creature type stories, and just about everything in between.
Cool. I had took the opportunity to read the book, and I had some questions. Obviously, a lot of it's based around Lexington, where you grew up, and I'm familiar with. I lived there for a while and worked there. Just if you want to, if you could just go through your stories, and I've got a couple that I'm interested specifically in, but just what was your inspiration, or are they based on true events, any of them? And
yeah, the first one in the book, Wretched Rudy, is actually loosely based on the Red Eyes legend around Lexington. Mostly that, I think, is over on State Street or State Road, over on the West Columbia side of the Gervais Street Bridge.
Right.
But there was a lot of that went on in the neighborhood I lived in, which was Peachtree Acres, and some of it was just the older boys in the neighborhood, probably picking at us younger kids.
Right.
But the red in that area, we actually called the sightings Red Eye Rudy, and it was red eyes that would appear in the swamp, because the railroad tracks that ran there, they ran kind of through a short swamp area that went down past Kaufman's meatpacking plant.
Oh, yeah.
So that area over there, we used to walk those tracks sometimes late at night, and of course try to freak each other out when we get near the swamp. But it's loosely based on that, and the characters in that story are all actually friends of mine. I just changed the names to protect the innocent, and just kind of a little bit based on some of those experiences we had.
Right.
Dean's Machine, I actually wrote after I watched an episode of Mysteries at the Museum, where they talked about James Dean's car.
Right.
And mysteries behind his car. So a lot of what's in there is factual. The only thing I really added was about the car showing up in South Carolina. And again, I utilized some of the same characters and kind of put it in the same area, which is the 2 Mile Swamp area in Lexington, which it is an actual swamp, but it's a fictional name.
Right.
Whispering Pines, again, that's just kind of takes place in that area. It's a little bit different. Has more of a science fiction kind of feel to it. But again, the same characters, same area, just utilizing the swamp. And, a particular character who the boys have met and is actually in some other stories that I haven't completed writing yet. Timmy's Tale, about a little boy that disappeared and they never found what happened to him. Again, the same area, but
is that based on a true missing persons case, or
no?
Okay.
No,
okay.
It's just I wanted to include an animal
right.
in the story, and it just kind of came to me. and that story came together utilizing that dog and the little boy Timmy and the disappearance, and the snowstorm I referenced in there, the blizzard of what was it, 72 I think, or
that really took place.
That really took place, and actually I moved to South Carolina just after that blizzard, so I utilized a real event there to build that story around. And the last one, What in These Woods Does Creep, I actually just came up with the name and then built the story around the name. I wanted to, in that particular story, I wanted to get into some description and kind of, I hate to say, I don't want to say build on some personal events or feelings, but, the story's a little bit about a frustrated guy who wanted to express himself creatively and wasn't getting support for that, and the story kind of built around that. So I don't want anybody to read that and think I poisoned somebody. So that part of it's fiction. But yeah, I was just thinking of names for stories, and I came up with What in These Woods Does Creep, and then I built the creeper around that and stuck it up in Oconee County, in the national forest up there.
Wow, it's really, as in any other art form. I mean, it's to hear the background behind it is great. When I read through those, I mean, the Dean's Machine, it really took me out. I thought, man, this one's not. There's not any faults, or fiction to this. This is, really happened to him. It's I mean, I knew the whole story behind James Dean's Porsche and it being, haunted, and all the deaths associated with people that have owned it or have come into contact with it.
Yeah, just with parts. Parts they got from the car, and those people were died or were injured severely. Right. First time they used the car with those parts. That's
wild. So
yeah.
I really enjoyed the book. It was great because I honestly don't know if I've ever really since school have read a book that was a collection of stories rather than being one plot that's built on. So it was nice because you didn't have that. You could read through a story, and then if you put it down and had something else to do, you come back to it. So it was great because it was, based off of a lot of the stuff that we're interested in and talk about in this podcast. So
I appreciate that. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it, and I actually have quite a few other stories, and some of them actually are based a little more in truth, that take place in that same area that we're hoping to do a sequel to this book eventually, and hopefully those stories will show up. If nothing else, I'll try to sell them to a magazine or something.
Right.
Get them out there.
Well, we'll make sure that anybody interested in getting the book, there will be links to be able to get to it in the show notes when we post this. So
yeah, great. I appreciate it.
They'll be easy for them to just click on it and go, and we can add your contact information in there too. You've been on a number of paranormal investigations, and you've sent me some audio files that because of our current setup, I'm not able to add them in here, but we will have them in these show notes, or in the show recording. So we're not going to play them online and react to them, but we will definitely have them for the audience in the podcast. So just go in and tell us where you've investigated and what you've done and what you found.
Yeah, the very first investigation I did, and I do this with my daughter, was Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in Weston, West Virginia, and I had seen it on a couple of different shows. Ghost Hunters had been there, Ghost Adventurers have been there, and I was trying to find. I just got interested in doing this as kind of a cathartic kind of thing because I was always freaked out by the paranormal and decided, hey, I want to do something to face my fears. So I went out and I found there's a lot of these events that are hosted by paranormal celebrities. And this particular one had Amy Bruni, Steve Gonslaves, and Dave Tango from Ghost Hunters
Right.
were the guest guides there. And then you also have, the staff at the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. So long story short, you end up with probably about 100, 120 people at one of these events. But this place was so big that you get paired off into groups, and each group has a paranormal celebrity that takes you through. So if you can imagine, they take you into this building and maybe a group of 20, 23 people, and they kind of explain things to you, and then they just let you go in a wing of this building, which is, overall it's 240,000 square feet, and it's 4 stories high. So when you get turned loose in an area, you're actually in an area that's 50,000 square feet plus. And if even if you have 20 people and you're paired off or groups of 4, you can go and get lost in that area and not be walking into other groups of people. So that was my first time doing that, and I had limited equipment, and they just put us in there. You're in pure darkness. They ask you not to use flashlights unless you use a filtered lens, and then they cut you loose. And they give you kind of a little rundown of the hot spots in the area, and we were fortunate to investigate the first floor on our on the first part of the investigation, and you get about an hour to go through there. And we just broke off from the group and started, going through different parts of it, trying to keep as far away from people as we could and see what we could find. The thing about doing that kind of stuff is a lot of times you don't really know if you've collected anything until you go back and review the evidence.
Right.
As is the case with that recording I gave you, I had no idea that we had picked up anything in that room. And this being Lily's room, if anybody's familiar with this area, Lily was a child born in the asylum to one of the people in the asylum, and she was raised there. And she died when she was 8 or 10 years old, and I can't remember why she died, but her room has a lot of activity with toys and stuff moving. Now we went in there with a camera and recorder and flashlights to try to do flashlight session and get responses. And as far as I know or knew at the time when we left, we hadn't recorded anything. And then when I went back and reviewed the evidence, I had 3 really good EVPs, and 2 of them are what they would consider a Class A, where I got a direct response to a question.
Yeah, they were, and they were. You'll hear them in the recording for those that are going to be listening to the podcast. But yeah, they're creepy and really, really amazing. They're very clear if you turn up the volume and listen with a good pair of headphones or earbuds. It's unmistakable.
Yeah, and we captured some other stuff in that building. My daughter actually had something thrown at her out of the darkness. Nobody in a room. A quarter-sized or almost half-dollar-sized piece of tile launched horizontally at her and hit her in the leg. I caught that on video roughly. It's a little hard to see. And then I myself had an experience on, I believe it was the 4th floor, might have been the 3rd, where something grabbed the sleeve of my shirt and tugged it. Wow. And I immediately stopped, checked to make sure there was nothing hanging, nothing, sticking out that could have caught my shirt, but I was in the middle of a room, and there was no way. And that's Trans-Allegheny. I've also been to Sloss Furnaces in Birmingham, Alabama, and we did a private investigation of the Old City Jail in Charleston.
Oh, wow.
And we also did a investigation at South Pittsburgh Hospital in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, and I got to meet Johnny Zaffis there, and Alabama Boys, and Dustin Perry was there, and a few other paranormal celebrities. Just really cool people.
Right.
Really interesting, and I'll tell you, people people don't give a lot of credit to electronic voice phenomenon or EVPs a lot of times, because they say, oh, you can just, you can pick out anything out of there. It could just be background noise or something like that. But when I went to Sloss Furnaces, I did probably twice as much recording as I did at Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, and I didn't get anything, which to me is evidence for when I do get something.
Right.
It gives me validity to when I do get something, because I could not go through that audio and pick out anything I was convinced was an electronic voice or a disembodied voice. So it lends more credence to me when I actually do get something that I feel is, is a real response.
Sure.
And the most interesting thing at Sloss was, at that time I had a night vision camera. That was when I first got to use my night vision camera, and I picked up, I think I sent that to you too, some sort of an image that appeared on the video, just a very quick flash, very creepy looking image.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I thought it was. I didn't realize it was at a different location. And yeah, it's almost like the outline of something in that, that lights up like a. Yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah, it was in a tunnel at Sloss Furnaces underneath the refinery. They have I believe it's a 1,300-foot long tunnel, and it's probably maybe 30 feet or so underground. It's a brick tunnel, and there's a railroad tracks in there, and a kind of a big cart or piece of machinery that rolls up and down through there, and you have to squeeze by it. And we were probably 600-800 feet down inside this tunnel, and I just set the cameras up. We were doing EVP sessions and stuff like that, and I didn't notice anything at the time, but when I was reviewing the evidence and going through watching the video, I saw that flash. It was so quick, and I went back and checked it out frame by frame, and that actual image appears for only about 2 to 3/10 of a second. And I looked at other areas where I caught people with a flashlight or taking a flash picture,
right?
And those were all over 4/10 of a second to up to 6/10 of a second, and they faded in and out. This doesn't fade in and out. It's there, and then it's gone. So I ruled out that it was any kind of flash photography or a flashlight based on that.
Right.
That's the only, other than like I said, the object being thrown at my daughter, that's the only actual picture evidence or film evidence that I've been able to capture of anything paranormal.
Right. Have you ever, a lot of people that go on, I've never been on a paranormal investigation, but a lot of people encounter, they get scratches. You said you got tugged. Have you ever been scratched or anything that you felt was like, your daughter got tile thrown at her, but anything else malevolent, that you felt was sinister?
I haven't, but at South Pittsburgh, my daughter is very attuned to emotion. And, we kind of experienced this a little bit the first couple of times when we went to Trans-Allegheny. We were getting ready to break off from the group and go into an area that was a long hallway, and she got a creepy feeling and didn't want to go. But when we were in Tennessee at South Pittsburgh, the very first group or session that we went to watch was Johnny Zaffis doing a spirit box. That conversation or communication, trying to communicate with spirit through a spirit box.
Right.
And she got so overwhelmed with emotion that she started crying. I can't remember exactly what was being said, but it was what the words they were picking up on a spirit box. And if you don't know what a spirit box is, it's basically a radio, and it just cycles through all the frequencies, and it picks up words. Right. And if everything's working correctly, you get direct responses to your questions. And the responses we're getting were kind of creepy and sad. and she picked up on this emotion and started bawling. Well, later on that night, and this is where the malevolent part comes in, is we were in a different part of the building, and she started getting agitated. And I really didn't pick up on it at first. And then we got to a certain part, and she just got angry, really angry, to the point where I had to take her out of there. And it dawned on me when this started happening that she was being affected by something angry, some spirit energy that was angry. And once I got her outside of the hospital, she was fine. And she didn't even really remember it or know why she got angry. So, that, as far as that goes, that's the only real experience like that I've had. I've never been scratched. And you're not, they tell you when you go into these things, you're not supposed to provoke the spirits. You're not supposed to say anything to provoke them. And the only thing that I've ever done in that regard was, and again, you're going through these investigations, you don't know if you're getting anything. And it was late at night, and we were getting close to the end of the investigation, and I had asked the question jokingly, would you like me to jump out that window? And when I went back and listened to the responses, I got a yes. Yeah. Very clear, very creepy yes. I think I sent you that one too.
Yeah, this is very creepy. I mean, come on, how much more direct can you be? Yeah,
and that one scared my daughter. That was actually the first EVP I picked out, and I had left it for her, and it scared her so bad she slept that night with her light on in the room because she was creeped out by it so bad. And it's very creepy, very sinister sounding. Yes.
Oh yeah, yes, and I don't, any kind of ghostly encounter. I mean, we had stuff happen at a previous house we lived at. I mean, Harrison, you had when you were like
the woman in white.
Yeah,
it was white. I can't remember if it was white or yellow, because I've heard Mom say that it was white, but I remember her being in a yellow dress, standing at the front of my bed at night after I'd gone to sleep and having conversations with me, like full night long conversations.
Wow.
Like nothing, like I can't completely remember what they were about because I was pretty young, but nothing like out of the ordinary to me. Like we just like sat there and like all night long had a conversation, and I'd wake up and I'd be like not tired or anything. Like I'd stayed up all night, so I didn't know if it was a dream or real life or what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, you were. Go ahead, okay. Richard. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that the theory is that children, the younger you are, the more attuned you are to that stuff. And my daughter had a lot of experiences when she was younger, similar type things. Someone that would appear in the house she was staying at and talk to her. And honestly, I think that would just creep me out, even at my age and what I've experienced in doing this. But for some reason, when you're younger like that, it doesn't seem to have that same effect. But you're more attuned to it.
Right, and that's how Harrison was. I mean, he like came down for breakfast one morning. He was like, I don't know, he had to be like 6 or maybe 7 at the most, and he was like, just start talking about this woman in white, and my wife's like, or yellow or whatever. And she's like, what woman? He's like, the woman that comes and talks to me at night. We were like, what? And this is really before we started having all the stuff we talked about on a couple of episodes back that happened to my family with my oldest daughter and my wife seeing the shadow man or shadow figure.
Yeah.
The stuff I encountered. But it's weird to me because I don't know what it is about. I guess you're talking about like lunatic asylum or hospitals. It just the creep factor just goes through the roof for me, and I guess that's to be expected for most people. But man, I don't. For one thing, I don't know how you did that. I don't know that I could do that to go in a place like that. And
yeah, it's really changed me because I was a person who didn't like to even sit in total darkness and watch something semi-creepy on TV. And after doing this a couple of times, like when we went to the old city jail in Charleston, I just broke off away from everybody else, was walking through the jail. Wow. And darkness, looking. I wanted to see something. Because that place is supposed to be really active.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see something. I was looking and going into all these different, completely dark areas trying to find something. And actually, a couple of people that I had there with me, a couple of friends that had come along, they got to see an orb, and I didn't get to see it because they were in a different spot.
Oh,
and it was 3 or 4 of them. It was I can't remember the color or anything, but it was roughly a softball-sized orb just came into the room they were in and flew by them and then disappeared. And I was like, why couldn't I have stuck with them?
Well, I don't know if it was if it's the jail or it might have been the dungeons down there in Charleston. I have a friend whose parents went and did that tour with some other people, and they did it as a ghost tour, not just a normal daytime tour. And the father got pinched. Yeah, he got pinched, and he was thinking it's whoever was behind him, but he turned around and it was nobody else behind him. Everybody that he was with was in front of him. I know the jail. I've seen. There's been a couple, ghost adventure, ghost hunter type shows that have gone down there and done episodes there.
Yeah, and it's very active, and the guide that was there, I got the impression she was kind of, she's there most of the time,
right?
And she she sits and has conversations with spirits in the library area upstairs, and so I was really, really hoping I was going to see a full-blown apparition or something like that, but I didn't see anything. I don't even think I think we picked up one EVP there, but it wasn't anything we could determine exactly what was said.
Right.
And again, my friends got to see an orb, and I really didn't get to see anything.
Wow. I can't imagine sitting there carrying on conversations with spirits. That's just, whew.
As long as they're friendly, I guess it would be okay.
Yeah, like when they start telling you to jump out of windows or something,
yeah,
kind of turns you off right there.
Exactly.
Well, I know you have other, you have an interest also, like we do, in Bigfoot and Sasquatch and that whole ball of wax. I mean, that's there's so many ways to go there. But what are your thoughts? Have you done any investigations into it, or just armchair research?
Yeah, it's mostly armchair research. I haven't had the chance yet to really go out, and I do want to go and pick up a hot spot or semi-hot spot somewhere close, and maybe a couple of friends and go out and try to do an investigation. I've got a couple ideas on things. I watch a lot of the shows and see a lot of the evidence and listen to theories and the way they do things, and I do believe Bigfoot is a real creature. I'm not sure what it is. I think, and I believe that I've heard Harrison talk about it, Gigantopithecus, is that right? The ancient, the older ape-like ancestors that used to roam this area?
Yeah, Gigantopithecus.
Mm-hmm. And I think it could be a holdover from that. I told you I kind of have a theory, and it goes back to why they're able to disappear. It seems like you see something and then they try to run it down and it's gone. And
right.
And my theory there is if these creatures have been around for thousands of years and they're nocturnal and either cave dwelling or live underground, it's quite possible they could have old underground dwellings that have been around for hundreds or thousands of years, used by their ancestors, that they keep camouflaged, and they're just able to duck down into an underground tunnel, den, complex of some sort, and just disappear.
All right.
And we're not looking for that. We're looking for them. So we could possibly go right by some camouflage entrance to an underground area that they live during the day.
Right. Well, it's interesting. Brian Sykes, I'm not even sure what his He's a DNA expert from Oxford University. He he's put a couple books out about Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Yeti, and I was just reading one a couple months back, his latest one, and I can't think of the title right off the top of my head, but he at the beginning of the book he tells a story about visiting with a researcher, and they take him out to the woods. And honestly, I'm thinking it's Pacific Northwest or maybe into British Columbia. But they go into the woods, and this researcher tells them that, takes him to this tree and with all these roots coming out, this huge tree, and tells them that, basically to stand here and you'll be able to feel the Bigfoot because they're underground. This is one of their hiding places. That they get under this tree, that they have an opening that they get around, and they get under this tree, and that's, I don't know, it doesn't go into much detail beyond that. And I think he comes at it as kind of, from what I remember, kind of like, he's not sure he believes all that, what this person's telling him, but, it fits right in nicely. I mean, come on. That they've seen them a lot around places where there are known cave systems. There's been a lot of sightings up in Kentucky where they have the huge cave systems. The big national park up there. In the mountains, all through the Appalachians, all mountains are going to have some form of caves, and we know they're heavily there's a lot of sightings and encounters along mountain systems. I mean, you go from out in the Pacific Northwest, you get here to the Appalachians, even up in Uwharrie, which is just a really small mountain range. It's like foothills, but there's been a number of encounters and sightings up there.
Yeah, I just think you have an intelligent creature and a lot of history, of them surviving, and they have to have something in place that is passed on from one generation to another, as far as where they live or how they conduct their business and hide. I just think it makes sense that they have some sort of underground complex or underground dens that they can disappear into quickly and quietly and stay out of human contact as much as possible.
Sure.
And it's the I think what bothers me most is some of these shows where they going out, they're hunting Bigfoot, as in hunting it like they would a deer or something like that. To me, this animal would be, probably closer to human than a great ape, and would definitely be an endangered species, and should not, even be hunted. And there are a few places in the country that have laws against killing Bigfoot.
Right.
So it's not something you'd ever get national support on unless they actually prove they were here. And I think it's highly possible that, if people that do really encounter them and maybe have knowledge of them, that where they are, wouldn't share that publicly just because of what would happen.
Right.
With the people who would want to go, kill a Bigfoot and mount it, or expose them to the world, and then they become they just become a something, try to put in a zoo or a craze or a phase for people to go out and look at.
Right. Yeah, I think you see it with all forms of animals, and I don't know, if a Bigfoot's an ape or primate. I'm thinking it's something more intelligent than just. Primates. Your great apes are pretty intelligent creatures, but this is it appears to be more so. But like you said, you got history. I mean, even within the animal world, other species, you have, dogs, cats, and you go into, any other kind of animal. They have certain things that they just know.
Right.
And I don't think it's any different with these, like you said. And then you have, if they're really, truly are more intelligent, which they appear to be, yeah, sure, they're going to pass things. They're going to teach, the new ones how to do things. They're going to have, probably family groups, and they're going to share secrets for, each family group's going to have things that they're going to share with their group. And, yeah, I think you're onto something there. And I mean, and then you add on top of it, these things have an incredible way to transition between running on two legs bipedally or quadrupedally, transitioning. People have seen them transition up into trees like it was just nothing. Just grab a tree and basically climb up it with their arms. And I heard one story where the person said they saw one coming, across. They already say, most people that see them run said they have just a really fluid motion to them. There's no bobbing up and down. They just move weird, that it's just creepy the way they move. And then I've heard a couple of interviews where people said they witnessed them run like that, and then they would get to trees and their feet totally came off the ground, and they just used their arms to go through this brush without touching the ground. And they were, just mere inches off the ground, their feet, but they weren't touching the ground. I mean, they're incredibly strong. And then you have people that have witnessed them being on all fours, really low to the ground. So they're spread out, almost like spread eagle, but their body's not on the ground. It's up off the ground, and they're walking or creeping through the woods on their hands and feet, but they're not touching the ground with their body. That right there is just, if I saw that, I would lose my mind, because there's something incredibly creepy about that.
Well, and that shows intelligence, because they're being stealthy.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that footage that you had talked about was it Iwari? Is that how you pronounce it? Isn't that the one where the Bigfoot crawled up and took something off the stump? Is that the one?
Right. The Mike Green thermal footage. Yeah, he had been, I guess, working that area for a while and planting stuff there, and then he caught it on thermal coming up late one night or early in the morning. Yeah, it came up and crawled up and just reached its arm up and grabbed what was on the log or the stump there and just went with it.
Yeah, and that shows, pre-thought and stealth, and so a lot of thinking. And I mean, they've just recently discovered chimpanzees using tools and actually using tools as weapons, and that they ferment certain types of fruit and make alcohol. So, and that's a chimpanzee.
Yeah.
We're talking about something that is most likely a lot more intelligent and a lot more advanced than a chimpanzee. So you can only imagine what they're capable of.
Right. Yeah, and there's also thermal footage from, I can't remember exactly. I want to say like Grays Harbor, somewhere around there up in Washington, along the coast. And I think it's the family's name are the Browns, and they have a place up there, and I think they have a few acres, and there's a thermal footage. They've been having experiences for years, and I think they called in some researchers to come investigate, and they have a thermal footage they caught one night, and you can see their cows like walk by, and then behind them, where I guess it like transitions over a hill, starts down to in the trees, and you see just from like the breast area up this massive creature, and he's down like that, and he's just like looking up over that lip at the cows, and I guess whoever's out there. There's a number of people out there when this happened, sitting around in like lawn chairs or whatever, I think. And this thing is massive. I mean, if you haven't seen it, you should go look for it. I think
Yeah,
it's like the brown thermal footage, and it compared to the cow, and it's still a ways from the cow, because it's back a ways, but it's just an incredibly massive creature, and it's down like that, real low to the ground, just like lifts its chest up and.
Yeah, I just think there's too much out there to discount that something is out there. There's too much evidence, too many sightings. Sure, a lot of it's hoaxes. If you go to YouTube, there's a lot of hoaxes, but there's also a lot on there that's unexplainable.
Right. Yeah, I think, you can't have. I mean, you're not just talking about the continental U.S. You're talking about globally. You got Australia with the Yowie, and you've got the Yeti in the Himalayas, the ring pendek, and I know there's some in South America. I can't remember what they called that, but you've got thousands of people, thousands and thousands of people every year that see something, and it's all basically described as pretty much the same thing. And these people aren't in one city or town or whatever. These are spread globally across the world.
Oh, yeah.
There's just no way. There's no way this is made
Yeah.
up.
And what was it, in 1970, early 1970s, that the last remaining member of a tribe of Indians no one knew existed walked out of the foothills of California?
Yeah, right.
And and up to that, till that point, nobody knew they existed. And that, granted, that's a human being, but still, I think we're talking about a creature that's nearly as smart as a human, and maybe just lacks, the language skills that we have, but is certainly able to reason and figure things out for itself.
Right. And
So-
I mean, like you said, if it's this intelligent and it's able to move and be fluid like it is, it knows that it's going to know that humans are not where it wants to be, because it's smart enough to be able to stay out the path, to stay away from encounters that it's just, I mean, animals are smart, but then you get something like this, like you said, that is obviously got more intelligence than your average animal. It's going to know. I mean, animals are amazing at camouflage as it is, and then you add that intelligence factor. Just
And you occasionally have a dog or a cat that's levels above other dogs and cats in intelligence and empathy and just the way they do things. So it shows you that capacity is there even in an animal to be more intelligent than the rest of its species.
right.
And so then you take something that's already more intelligent, or closer to that intelligence. You're going to have some that are even more intelligent than others in their species, and they're going to be the leaders that would probably teach and carry on these their ability to hide or however they are able to avoid people for the most part.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I think as with humans, and same thing, like you said, with dogs, other animals, with these things, I believe you have different personalities. I think that's why you have some encounters that turn violent. Some of it, I think, is when people walk into them in a hunting pack or something, a lot of most encounters you see where people will see them and they'll realize that they're being watched or seen, and they'll just disappear into the woods, very docile. But I think a lot of it depends on the personality of the creature itself too. There's been a lot of speculation about the government keeping tabs on them, and when they have ones that become a quote unquote problem, they have teams that go in and eliminate them. I don't know if there's truth to that. A lot of people seem to believe there are, and I've heard a lot of interviews with people that supposedly were involved in these teams and say, absolutely it's true. But I think it's like any other person, any other creature. You don't know what you're dealing with on an individual basis.
Yeah, even the most docile creature can turn violent, and it's situational, and it could involve young.
Sure.
I mean, you look at bears. Bears can just roam around and not have a care in the world for people in a national park. But then if they've got cubs and somebody approaches a cub, the mama bear can go crazy.
Yeah.
And attack someone, and it could just be the same thing there. And like you say, you just may have an occasional one that's not as smart as the others, or just is not as nice as the others, and is prone to violence. Or they could just be doing things like apes do. They'll charge you to try to get you, to scare you.
Right.
And that's too easily. I mean, if you have something 9 feet tall and maybe 600 pounds charging you, I would probably fear for my life too.
Yeah.
And misconstrue it as a attack. But to me, if they wanted to attack you and kill you, there wouldn't be any way you could stop it.
Right, and you wouldn't be around to tell that this happened. I mean,
right?
Yeah, I totally agree.
They're littered with the bodies of dead people, who've been crushed by something huge. It's so it's unlikely to me that they're aggressive by nature.
Right. Yeah, I think it's the circumstantial thing, and it's just a wrong place, wrong time for the most part. I think when those happen that way, I think it's probably one of the biggest mysteries out there right now, and I don't know. I'm not really sure what intrigues me more, if it's the mystery or it's just the creature itself. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's one of my passions there. I didn't mean to get off on a tangent about that too much, but I can have a tendency to do that when it comes to that subject. But what else are you into? Are you get into? Do you do anything with like UFOs, or have you ever delved into that? Or
I've always been very interested in UFOs. I just believe, if you just look at the science, there's just no way we're alone. If you believe, in the universe, and that, there's, I think the latest thing I read, there's potentially, 15 million inhabitable planets just in the known part of the universe.
Right.
And just the likelihood that there's something that's out there that's been around longer and been able to develop, to a much more advanced state than we are, just seems very likely to me. I had an experience one time, and this was when I was in high school, and it was kind of at dusk, and I can't say for sure that it was a UFO, but I was, the old, some of those old subdivisions where they built the roads before they built the houses.
Right.
And kids used to go hang around in those. Well, we were hanging out in a cul-de-sac in one of those, and sitting on the tailgate of the truck, and I saw these two balls of light rise up above the trees, and they hovered there for a few seconds, and then they started doing like weaving in and out around each other.
Right.
And this went on for maybe just 20, 30 seconds, and then all of a sudden they just shot off and disappeared. And at that time, I was in high school and I was playing Dungeons and Dragons, so my first thought was Will-O-the-Wisp. But whether it was something paranormal or otherworldly, UFO related, I can't say for sure. But that's the only experience I ever had like that, where it could have been a UFO.
Right.
But yeah, I watch a lot of the shows that come on about UFOs. I like to search the internet for sightings and things like that. And I do believe that there is something out there.
Right. Yeah, it just seems. I think it goes along with, we were talking about Bigfoot, Sasquatch. It's the same kind of concept there. You have many people throughout the world seeing things that can't be explained, and filming, and a lot of, you got hoaxes. You're always going to have hoaxes in any subject like this, but there's too many people that are seeing something, encountering something, for there not to be. I mean, I think if you've ever watched the documentary Mirage Men, talking about the Air Force and their disinformation, where they infiltrated UFO community and provided this disinformation. I mean, to me, right there, that screams that they know there's something and they're covering it up, because they're pumping all this information into the UFO community that's obviously false. So I tend to agree with you. I think there's something. What it is, I don't know, but there's definitely something to it, more than, I believe, just experimental aircraft that we're testing.
Yeah, I think it's there's a lot of great information out there, and there's a lot of pretty off the wall stuff, and the theory that the United States actually has a fleet of, or maybe the world, not just the United States but other countries involved, has a fleet of interstellar ships that they've built from technology, either obtained from alien races or reverse engineered from crashes. Supposedly secret documents with a list of soldiers or officers that were not in any of the Army, Navy, Marines, or anything like that, and they figure they're in some sort of a secret government project. I mean, that stuff's probably crazy, but there's definitely potential there that if we have gotten hold of alien technology and been able to reverse engineer it, that there could be something, some group out there, exploring, if not just within our own solar system, outside of our solar system. Right. And then at that point, where do you break the physical laws? Where Einstein doesn't believe you can travel faster than light. So are they using some sort of other technology, or where they wormholes, all that sort of stuff that we see in science fiction, or are they bound by that speed of light and going on long missions that could take years to get to a specific point?
Right.
And then the whole time phenomenon there, where it take you 4 years to go 4 light years away, 4 years at light speed to get there, but actually time has passed at tenfold where you left. That's always kind of intrigued me, how that would work.
Yeah, it's I just going back to the UFO and the alien, just at the basic level. I mean, when you see people witness or video objects that can just make a complete about face and zoom out at incredible speeds. I mean, there's just, I can't think that even if there was something like that, how would a human be able to sustain the forces involved with something like that? Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely, and then you get into, like you said, possibly time slips or rips in the fabric, missing time events, with some abductions and supposed abductions. That's yeah. I don't know how you'd explain that. And then, I mean, just the technology behind somebody saying that something came into the room in a locked house, locked windows, and they're missing, several hours of their night, and then they have hypnosis or whatever, and realize they start piping out all this stuff about being in some ship and seeing these creatures and stuff. There's too many people saying the same stuff, so
Right.
it goes along with all of it. There's got to be some level of truth.
Yeah, you can have a few, for lack of a better term, crazies or people who are, just trying to get their name out there by claiming something. But when you have, dozens and dozens of these instances and similarities between them, and people who've never, spoken to each other, and there's a whole area. Seems to me there's a whole area somewhere up north where there's in a town where there's several people who have been supposedly abducted repeatedly, from this town, and you would think under those circumstances you could get a little more evidence of it.
Right.
But again, I wonder, I wonder if these people are really thinking about it on the evidentiary terms, or if they're just dealing with it. It's like if you watch one of these paranormal shows where these people are living in a house and there's something, violent and in there, it's making a lot of noise and throwing things and breaking things and threatening, and you wonder, why are you staying?
Right. Yeah.
I would be gone. Yeah. I'd be at the Holiday Inn Express and putting a for sale sign out at my house.
Yeah.
So, when people are, into the moment and experiencing this stuff, they react differently than, the outsiders, us, who are listening to what's going on.
Right. Right.
And who knows what would happen if we experience the same thing and how we deal with it.
Right. And, and it makes you wonder, maybe that is why, if these things are really happening, maybe that's why they were the quote unquote chosen ones to be abducted or tested or whatever they do when they take them wherever they take them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's because they're not going to fight back, or they're not going to do anything to try to expose it.
Right. Right.
Than the few interviews or whatever they do talk about it.
Yeah, they know they're vulnerable in some way, either mental capacity or mental, I don't know, physical maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting phenomena, and I think it's just another mystery, and who knows if there'll ever be an answer to that.
Yeah, I think the whole alien thing would collapse some religious beliefs if it was ever exposed, and that could be a problem.
Sure.
Because devoutly religious people would probably resist the idea of life on other worlds. And yet, sorry about that.
No problem.
I knew it would happen eventually. But just that would conflict with a lot of some of the mainstream religion, but definitely some of the more extreme religious beliefs. They would just totally rebel against that idea.
Yeah, I think you see that also with the Bigfoot and Sasquatch Yeti argument too, because a lot of people who have witnessed these things at a close proximity, especially guys that have hunters who were out hunting and encountered them and supposedly had them and scoped, and I can't tell you. I mean, I've heard this said, I couldn't shoot this thing because it looked so human. Its face looks so human, and there are people, Indian tribes that believe, have existed with these things for thousands of years, and say they are a people. They are a race of people, and that right there would throw, along with getting just staying within this earth and not being extraterrestrial, unless, some people claim Bigfoot's extraterrestrial also. That right there would throw a lot of religions into a tailspin. To me, I don't see that as much. I mean, it can look as human as it wants. There's a lot of monkeys that look human, but they're not human.
Right.
I think it's some kind of creature that's just never been, something we've never encountered before. But yeah, I totally see where the alien thing definitely would bring a lot of things into question.
Well, and it makes sense. There's a lot of coinciding between UFO sightings and Bigfoot sightings. But if aliens come here to abduct people, I would think they would be very interested in something that size.
Right.
So they could just be abducting Bigfoots.
Yeah. And people are thinking it's the opposite.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not the Bigfoots coming from the UFOs. It's the UFOs coming to abduct the Bigfoot and study it.
Right. A lot of people say, even with Bigfoot and with UFOs and alien encounters, I've heard a number of people that believe they're demonic. That these aren't, they're not Bigfoot and they're not aliens. That they're demonic entities that are just portraying themselves this way. So because that's what demonology. That's what demons' job is basically, is to take those that believe and basically change their mind, or put doubt into their mind.
Right. Well, you see that with, again, you go back to religion, there's a lot of religious people who would say UFOs are just angels.
Right.
Appearing in a different way, or they, like you say, they're, demonic, trying to cast doubt.
Right.
Into religion. I mean, my beliefs on that are, it's a huge universe, and anything is possible.
Well, yeah, and along that, a lot of people say had that same argument for ghost encounters. Mm-hmm. They say that ghosts are nothing more than demons. I don't,
right.
they're portraying themselves as a lost loved one, or a Civil War soldier or whatever, just to throw that doubt into your head. I mean, my thought is that we know it's a supernatural world. It's talked about in the Bible. I mean, I went to church as a kid, and I learned the Bible. I've read the Bible, and it's a supernatural world. We know there's supernatural worlds because the Bible speaks of angels and demons. I don't, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything that is, questionable and that's unexplained is demons.
Right. Yeah, I don't subscribe to that so much. I went in as a skeptic, and even though I haven't seen an apparition per se, the things I've experienced wouldn't make me think that everything out there is evil. And I don't pursue investigating anything like that either. Right. I'm not pursue anything that is, specifically, supposedly evil or demonic. I'm staying away from that. Right. Not a fan of that, and don't want to encounter that. I'm just looking for your everyday sort of paranormal ghosts, and as far as hauntings go or ghosts go, they classify them as residual hauntings or intelligent hauntings. And the residual haunting is just an energy presence that almost replays itself like a TV show. Right. Or something. It's just triggered by something. It's the same thing every time. And then the intelligent hauntings are where whatever is there is interactive in some way.
Right.
And everything I've experienced, as far as I can tell, is intellectual or intelligent, and actually reacted with what I did, and in no way did I feel threatened or anything.
Right.
I ever did that, I would just vacate that area.
Right. Yeah, I don't think it's. I think it's more. I think the demon thing is kind of a. That's just. I don't know if it's a insecurity, and that's just what's thrown out there, or if it's just almost like scared of knowing what could actually be. Yeah, I don't subscribe to that either. I don't think that. I don't think Bigfoot's demons. I don't think ghosts are demons. I think. And I, aliens, I don't know what they are, but I don't think that's the case with that either. With hauntings and stuff, I think, like you said, I think it's a residual energy that just hangs around, I think energy and the powers of that, things in this world that we just don't know exist. I think there are, and I can't think of the word I'm looking for. Their qualities or, well, I can't put my finger on the word. They're just, there's things about this world we just don't know. And I think this falls into it. And I think if we did, we would probably understand the whole ghost encounters. But the way, what you talked about with residual hauntings and intelligent hauntings, I mean, it fits nicely. I mean, it definitely describes about every situation. I mean, the ones that are demonic, you really know are demonic. You look at like Bob Mackey's or whatever, and the stuff that's gone on down there. I mean, at that location, that obviously that is a different end of the spectrum when it comes to paranormal activity. It's obviously something evil happening there.
Yeah, if you're getting scratched or bitten or things are thrown at you, with, malice, let's say, then that's a situation you want to remove yourself from, I would think. That's just not something I want to, because I do believe that it's possible for energy like that to attach itself to someone.
Right.
And I don't want to take anything home when I go ghost hunting. Right. I want to leave it where they're at.
Yep, that's for sure. Unless you're Zach Bagans or somebody, you want to just challenge the supernatural.
Yeah, those guys, some of those guys get a little bit. And there was a show not too long ago where those guys, I can't remember what it was called, but they really pushed the limits when they went, investigating. Yeah. Very challenging, very, provoking. And they were going after demonic and, evil presences. And, they're not on anymore. I don't know if it's because something happened or just people weren't into that, but, maybe they disappeared.
Yeah, well, I'd heard that with like Ghost Adventures, their camera guy, Aaron, I had heard, I don't know if it's true, that I think he got a divorce because of stuff that was supposedly brought back with him from these outings and stuff. Yeah, they had some weird stuff going on, and his wife couldn't take. I don't know if that's legitimate or not, but that's what I've heard. But I'm sure there have been cases. If it wasn't with him, then I'm sure there have been with others. So.
Yeah.
So what else do you have? I know you said you've got some stories you're working on, and you hope to do a sequel to your book. What other stuff you got going on that you're getting into, or do you have anything in the works besides the writing?
Well, I've been looking for another event to go to, another paranormal event. I had really wanted to go to Waverly Sanitarium in Louisville, Kentucky. They just had an event there not too long ago, and Josh Gates was there, and Josh is probably my favorite paranormal type celebrities because I just loved his show, Destination Truth. Yeah. But unfortunately, I didn't get to go to that one, so I'm keeping my eyes open for another event like that for me and my daughter to go to. Every year they do these Bigfoot expeditions, mostly by the BFRO, and but you got to sign up for those sometimes 6-8 months in advance, and they're not cheap to go on.
Right.
But it's it's kind of like these paranormal events. It's a large event. You actually have BFRO people taking you out, and you go out to hot spots, and you camp out for a weekend or 3 days or whatever, and they try to get you an experience of some sort. But there's a couple of places not too far from us that are really active, like over in Helen, Georgia.
Yeah.
There's a lot of activity over there, and there's a place actually called Bigfoot Expedition or Bigfoot. I can't remember. I've got them on Facebook, but they're over north of Atlanta, a couple hours, and I've been wanting to go visit that place.
It's at the that's in Blue Ridge, Georgia, isn't it? The museum type place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. That's it. I've been wanting to go there. So that's really on my list of things that I want to do is do some sort of and I don't necessarily believe I have to go out. It's like ghost hunting. Everybody goes at night. You don't really have to go at night
Right.
to encounter spirits. It adds to it. Now I think I would rather go Bigfooting during the day.
Right.
Because if I do need to run, I want to be able to see where I'm going. And I'm not so much as worried about the Bigfoot as, the potential of other animals in the forest.
Oh, yeah.
Bears or mountain lions or, whatever. So I'd like to be able to see what I'm doing. And I really look for evidence more than as much as look for the Bigfoot. I'd love to get a cast of a footprint or something. A sighting, yes, of course, but if nothing else, if you're going during the day and they're nocturnal, it'd be nice to find a nice footprint where something has gone through or some other evidence of something in the area.
Yeah, something physical.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's we went up just for a day trip on Sunday. Me and Harrison and my oldest brother drove up to Uwharrie, which is just northeast of Charlotte. And we just knocked around there. We drove around at first, and we started out at the Zor Cemetery, which is where Mike Green is in the close proximity. There is where Mike Green got the thermal footage of the Bigfoot, taking a candy bar or whatever off of the stump or log or whatever it was. And it was weird to me because I went there years ago by myself on the way back from a business trip, and I got so creeped out I couldn't even get out of the car. I just backed out and left. Uwharrie is a unique place to me because it's not a real big mountain range. Obviously, it's very small, and it's unexpected. I drove from like the Raleigh-Durham area across and came through that way into Charlotte, and when I came to Uwharrie, it was just kind of amazing to see, wow, there's a mountain range right here. I didn't, you don't expect to see mountains till you get to like Asheville, western North Carolina, Hendersonville, Brevard, that area. And then you see these little mountain range and you get into it. And I went to Zor Cemetery, and to get there, you go out of Troy, North Carolina, and kind of head northwest, I guess, a little bit. And I got up there to that road and lost cell phone signal, and I'm a few miles up the road, and there's nobody. I didn't see not a soul up there. And the same thing with this weekend. We saw a few people, but not very many. So it's not a heavily traveled or heavily visited national forest, I don't believe. And the other unique thing is when I went to Zor Cemetery first time, I went to the cemetery and I didn't, I pulled out of there and left real quick because I got creeped out. Just had this overwhelming feeling of being watched or like I shouldn't be there. So I listened and I left. And it was the middle of the day. It was 2:00, 1:30, something like that. But when we went up there this weekend, everywhere along that road where Zor Cemetery is at, was posted signs. I mean, everywhere. For national forest, I thought it was weird where it was like posted, no trespassing, private property. I was amazed. I was like, this is a national forest.
Yeah, I don't.
How can there be so many posted no trespassing signs?
Yeah. Huh.
But we drove around, knocked around. There's a number of gravel roads up there, and of course, on one part of it, I think on the west side, there's a lot of Jeep trails. There's a lot of people up there go up there for that, over towards Bodden Lake. But we stayed kind of toward the middle and the east side, and we didn't, encounter a lot of people. And then we ended up the day pulling in right across the street from Zora Cemetery as a campground. Which there was absolutely 0 people staying in. We drove through it and there was nobody there. And this was 4th of July weekend, so I thought that was strange. And then we pulled over to the Uwharrie Trail, which is right next door. The trailhead is right next door to the campground, and hiked up it a couple miles and back. And it is definitely would be a playground for these creatures. Because we saw a man and his 2 sons was the only people we encountered around that trail, and after they left, there was nobody there until we left. We didn't see a soul. So I think we're probably gonna plan on heading up there in the fall when it gets cooler, and probably stay in that same campground. If we get enough people, because obviously I'm not going to stay there, just me and Harrison. But if we get enough people, they have a buffer there, group, I would, feel comfortable then staying there, because that would be the place where, a day later the rangers would find what's left of you or your stuff, or, where'd these people go? We become one of the missing 411 or something.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'd definitely be interested in that, because I'd love to go. I'd love to go do something where I could go during the day, look, scout around, and then do some night stuff too. And like I say, I do have, some night vision equipment and things like that I'd love to put to the test out someplace like that, and do some trail cams, things like that, and maybe set up a, something to try to lure them in. Apparently, Snickers bars work.
I believe their preferred bar is a Zagnut.
Exactly.
I believe that's what Mike Green was using when he got one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can go with that.
We'll have to buy a couple cases of those.
Yeah.
All right. Well, go over it one more time. Just let everybody know where they can reach you, and I'll also get it from you and put it in the show notes. But
yeah. Again, name's Richard Laudenslager, Rick Laudenslager, and I can be reached through my email, rdl29073@yahoo. And if you feel inclined to go check out the book, it's Southern Swamps and Ruins, Haunting Tales by Richard D. Laudenslager and Fran Reiser, and then we got 6 guest authors, and it's available on Amazon.
Cool. Yep, and it's a good book, and you should go grab it. I will, and it's in Kindle format also for those that don't prefer books, which I was in the Kindle kick there for a while, but I prefer having a good old book in my hand. But I'll also put the link to it on the show notes and your email address, so if anybody wants to shoot you a message and get in contact.
Yeah, great.
We appreciate you definitely for coming on here, and I think we'll definitely have you again, and maybe we can get something together for a Uwharrie trip. Get enough people interested, maybe have a meetup up there or something like that, and that would be really cool. Go up there for a weekend, maybe start on a Friday night, because it's very close proximity to here. It's only 2.5 hour trip from where I live in Blythewood. So
yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd enjoy that, and I've got a couple people I know would be very interested.
Cool. I know Harrison. We talked about it this weekend. My brothers. I have a couple brothers that would be interested in going, so maybe we can do that. Make it happen.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Well, if you have anything else you'd like to chat about, or
No, I think I'm good, and I really appreciate you guys inviting me to be on, and I love the show. I love listening to it. I do a lot of driving, so I listen to a lot of audiobooks, but I'm interested in some of these podcasts that you've been talking about, and I'm starting to download some of those so I can listen to them on my daily commute.
Oh yeah,
and looking forward to that.
Yeah, there's some good ones too that we listen to every week, and they're definitely worth the effort of getting them, and I look forward to them every week and the subject matter they cover. So, all right, Harrison, you got anything? You've been quiet, buddy.
Not much to say. Y'all cover it all.
I know, we're just jabbering away. All right, well, I appreciate it, guys, and we'll break off of here and get this thing edited up and up probably up tomorrow.
Are you here with us, Lily? Are you here with us, Lily? Are you here with us, Lily? If you would like for us to jump off the third floor, turn the light on. If you would like for us to jump off the third floor, turn the light on. If you would like for us to jump off the third floor, turn the light on.
All right, well, that was a good episode with Richard. Hope you enjoyed the conversation we had with him. He has a lot of the interests that we do and a lot of other people that listen to these type of podcasts. So it's we'll probably have him back on. I'd like to have his daughter on. She wasn't available to be on the show tonight. She had something else going on. So next time, hopefully, we'll have them both on and get her thoughts on some things that she's been that she has encountered in her life. I guess I don't have anything else to add, buddy, unless you got something.
Nope.
All right, well, we'll go into our normal spiel here. I'd like to thank Ricky Young Music, rickyyoung.com, for letting us use his music so graciously for our podcast. Check him out. He's on iTunes. I'm sure he's on Google Music, and wherever you buy your music from, you can find him. We'd like to also thank our favorite podcast, Sasquatch Chronicles, Into the Fray, Saswhat, the Graylian Report. What else we got, buddy?
The Confessionals.
The Confessionals.
Okay Talk.
Okay Talk. Mysterious Universe. I'm missing one here. The Confessionals, Monsters Among Us, and Somewhere in the Skies. So, I guess if you don't have nothing else, buddy, we'll wrap this thing up and put everybody out of their misery and let Mr. Ricky Young lead us away. All right, buddy. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
See ya.
Bye.
Great-granddaddy signed his name to this paper in 33. It was risky for a poor boy and a young mother to be. Started out on an old gray mule and a broken plow. With sweat and blood he broke the ground, just deep enough to lay the seed. He pulled her through the drought of 42 and the flood of 53. When keeping it up was more than he could do, well, he handed her down to Granddaddy. It's seen the rain, it's seen the snow, watched cotton bloom and children grow. I thank God above and my roots below for this little piece of heaven I own. And Daddy worked hard to keep the family fed. Lost a battle with a bottle, put a gun to his head. Laid him to rest by the fence out back. Daddy doesn't like to talk about that, but he'll tell anybody all about standing next to Mama in a long white gown. They got married down there by the stream, where later they baptized brother and me. I had to fetch many a switch from those tall sticks down by the creek. And me and Kelly B shared our first kiss in the shade of that old oak tree. It's seen the rain, it's seen the snow, watch cotton bloom and children grow. I thank God above and my roots below for this little piece of heaven I own. So do you really think after 70 years your money and your threats can make us move from here? Tell your developer friends that I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. If they can pry it from my cold dead hands, they can have this deed.